Welcome back to Cool Club's headquarters here in Scottsdale. Today we have Billy Price. He's the Senior Director of Putters at TaylorMade Golf, also known as the Putter God by some.
In Japan.
In Japan.
In Japan. Oh, you're not. You're just the God of Japan, right?
Yeah. Japan. Remember, senior. The gray hair works well with senior.
And we're also here with Mark Timms, CEO and founder of Cool Clubs. And Billy, we want to really dive into this new putter technology. It's pretty exciting stuff.
Spider Max you're talking about, right?
Yes,
yeah, so Spider Max was one of those concept cars that we worked on for the last 5 years, and it really came from a lot of input from Tour. All the years that we've had Spider, and every time we come out with a new one, if you just looked at our two most successful Spiders, Spider Tour and Spider X, they're different. Not only do they look different, but they had different CGs. So some players could return it back to face angle better than others, right? So Rory didn't like the Spider Tour. He liked Spider X. Jason Day and a lot of the other guys preferred more Spider Tour, DJ and all those guys. So they work differently. So we learned a lot from CG location.
Right.
You know, we always talk about toe hang, but
Yeah.
it was really about CG. And this past year we had a putter called Spider GT, and that had a forward CG location around 30 millimeters. So it acted a little bit more like a blade. So a lot of the guys we got into the putter this year were more blade guys. They preferred that one, where they just didn't like the rotation of a Spider X or Spider Tour. Does that make sense?
And this is, well, it's a bit like Matt Bovey's story we're talking about where, you know...
Bovey who?
Bovey?
Yeah.
You spread the CG wide, you know, and you get it more stable.
Mm-hmm.
So, and then you bring it really close and it rotates quicker.
Well, it's in this case, we're talking about Spider Max, where we are moving 80 grams up and down the channel, the track, right? You're moving 80 grams. You're moving a lot of weight up and down, which is changing the CG location in the putter from, say, 29 millimeters to the face to 41 millimeters. You're talking about 3 different putters in one.
Right.
You're talking about like a Spider Tour or even a Daddy Longlegs all the way back
Right.
to a GT today.
And when you're
in
saying,
the same putter, so you kind
In
of
the same
fine tune it as you want.
yeah,
Right, right.
yeah. Oh, and that's really what we did. You know, we were out on the putting green with it, and me and the guy who went out there, we're like, all right, let's test it in all 3 positions. So we started with it forward, and then we moved it back and moved back, and then it's a noticeable difference of feel and performance.
To your point, yes, I was standing there, and he had it all the way back, missed right, all the way forward, missed left.
Oh, you were watching.
I was watching, yeah. And so left, right, and then all of a sudden we put it right in the 2 spot, right in the neutral position, dead center.
But
So
everyone's different, right? Some people in the front it might go straight. Right.
I was just watching a fitting here today.
Oh, okay.
And there was a gentleman, and his path was a little horrendous. But anyway, it wasn't about impact. You know, it's all about impact.
Yeah, face angle at impact.
Right, face angle and impact is, we say, 93% of the result.
Yep.
So the other 7, if you want to call it, is part of the path. But, in this case, we see it all the time in our facility. I mean, you could be 6 degrees outside and in, but you got 0 at impact, you're making that putt.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yep.
So whereas, you might have a guy that's just 1 degree, but the number one stroke that we see a lot of time would be 3 degrees outside and in and 1 degree open.
Right.
So imagine if we could fix that, gentlemen. And then their second one would be 2 degrees inside out with 1 degree closed. Complete opposites.
Yeah.
Right.
So I'm not worried about the path. I'm more worried about the face. You got one that's open, one that's closed. So what if we had a putter? That's what Spider Max was all about. So depending upon the miss, what's your tendency?
Right.
What's your tendency, especially under pressure?
Yeah.
We all have a tendency. We all have a tendency.
Well,
under
we've talked
pressure.
about drivers for years, with more draw bias, and you can adjust these things, go, make it draw, make it fade more and stuff. But I mean, it's, obviously that's important to fix a slice or a hook or whatever. But putter, I mean, be able to fine tune that to get the ball to go straight. I mean, quarter-inch offline too much is not missing the hole. So it's way more important.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So that hole from 14 feet is less than a degree, right?
Right.
So it's like 0.72, the left edge, right edge.
Yeah.
So we're dealing with a very small number there
Exactly.
of that face angle. And so imagine what the point is. I'm not trying to change your path. I'm trying to have the putter fit you.
Right.
Yes.
And we can change that.
Well, changing
through Spider-Max.
someone, putting can change, people's paths and stuff a little bit. Drivers, whatever, is impossible. I'll leave that to the teaching guys in the world, and it's a hard job. I don't want that job. But to be able to adjust the putter to exactly to dial in the face angle is phenomenal, right? So
exactly. So I was just watching this guy, and his putter was in a closed position. So I wanted to jump in, but I didn't. You know, imagine putting Spider Max there. So what we would do, because he over rotates and everything was going left, we would just pull that weight back.
That would
We want to
slow the closing of the club face and leave it square at impact rather than closed.
You're
Yes.
moving them symmetrically.
We're moving in symmetric. Now you can go asymmetric if you want, but what happens is the CG is not really changing.
Right.
You know, so
Yeah,
you
if you
want
think about
it. Yeah, you
if-
want it to
If you
go
had it all
up
the way
and
this
down.
way and you use it all the way this way,
The
center of
CG
gravity's
stay
still in
right.
the center, right?
Yeah, exactly.
But if you move everything front and back, you're changing it dramatically.
Now you're moving it.
Right.
You know, you're moving it 12 millimeters up and down that path, which is a lot. I mean, of a putter.
Have you got some imagery there to bring up just to give people an idea of what we're talking about with the tracks?
Yes. So what we could do is we could pull up the track here. We've got a nice photo of what that track looks like and what the movable weight is like, and that's just one of the weights. It's tungsten. Each one is 40 grams, so you're talking 80 grams. Now I've got a page that can show you all about the tendencies. I think, which is really important because as you look at the tendencies by a putter, because we're talking about fitting,
Right.
and you know, what's your tendency? And we always like to say, what's your tendency? Not only what's your tendency under pressure?
Yeah.
Because we all have a miss, and we guard against that under pressure. We know what we're trying to guard. We had Rory at a photo shoot one time. We were talking about blade versus mallet. He likes his Spider X, and he likes to go back and feel what a blade is all the time because it wants to rotate. And what's your miss with a blade? And before you can even get that out, the miss, left. And he says, 6 feet and in, he goes, I know it's going left. I know I'm rotating it.
Trying to hold it off.
He's trying to hold it off,
yeah.
and then he misses right.
Yeah.
So that's the thing about Spider X is it's kind of in this 2 position, and I'll pull this up here where you can see all the different spots here, whether you push or you pull. So when you look at the tendency here, you know, we can start in neutral. And that's like a Spider X there. So if we go if you pull everything, just like I said, I was watching a fitting here, we would move the weight back because it's going to slow that rotation around the shaft.
Right.
Yeah.
Access, right? Now, if you push something, which is the normal miss for most people that we see in a fitting, we want to speed that up so we can go from, you know, back into 1 position all the way to the 3 position, which is going to speed up a little bit of that rotation. So we can change that up to almost 3 degrees. It's about 2.5 degrees.
Really? Is that how much it affects a player? By
Yes.
forward and backwards? Almost
Yep.
3 degrees?
Almost 3 degrees. So we call it 2.5 degrees. So remember, we said the cup is 0.72.
Right.
So you're talking about
At 14 feet. you said,
at
right?
14 feet.
Yeah,
Yes.
okay. Yep.
At 14 feet. So you're a cup and a half. You're looking at on the
Wow,
outside.
yeah, that's a good way of thinking about it, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How much are you moving right to left? And at 14 feet, that's in and outside the hole.
So, you know, a lot of times, you know, 2 of the best putters I've ever seen, you had different players. Players line up to the right, players line up to the left.
Yep.
And, you know, just recently we had Colin in the facility, and, you know, little things matter in putting, as you guys know that.
Yeah.
He came in, he had a long plumber's neck, and he had a line in the cavity. And he aimed almost 2.5 degrees to the right with the line in the cavity and with the plumber's neck. So something was going on triggering his right.
Yep.
So we were testing a few things, and we tested a standard plumber's neck,
Right.
and we put a dot on top. So something with lines was making him, you know, go
Interesting.
right.
Yeah.
So the dot on top, all of a sudden his alignment went from 2.5, it went to 0.4.
That'll do.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's a huge difference.
0.4, and he returns it back to 0.2.
It's just from changing from a line putter to a dot.
From a line to a dot, and then we went from a long neck,
Right.
L neck, to a standard L neck.
I was going to say it was a proper long neck to give face balance out of it.
Does the yeah, right. But does the neck length seem to just doesn't really affect how you line it up so much, does it? I would think the lines
I think
would
it does.
for sure.
I think people's
Does it?
eyes freak out.
Yes.
I give someone, you know, obviously a centre shaft's way different, but you give them a centre shaft, a short plumbers, you know, long plumbers, and like a single bend or a double bend. There's one generally there that they aim much better than the other, just through the neck alone.
Interesting. Yeah.
Exactly. It's not only just the necks, it's then dots and lines
Yeah,
and everything
right, right.
else that, you know, it changes the game. We see it all the time with players that come through the building. I mean, they aim to the right, and then we try and we just test with different
And tour players
alignments.
don't actually necessarily. I mean, all players. I mean, good putters don't necessarily line it up at the target to begin with.
No.
Right.
Right. So, but it's getting that impact that you're worried about. So,
Yeah,
You know,
coming back.
if you leave it open 1 degree and you get it square all the time, that's fine. You
Now,
know?
in the case of Colin, he starts 2.5 degrees, but he was closing that
Closing it.
back up, and so
Right.
he's still within the cup. But there was a lot of force to get that back, whereas with the dot, he was lining up 0.4, return of
So
0.2.
less manipulation of the putter.
Yeah.
Under pressure, that's a big deal.
And I think that's really
Right?
what it
That's,
is.
that's the
pressure.
key, right?
There you go.
Under pressure is a big deal.
Yeah. And when you haven't got to make a manipulation, you're making a better stroke. I mean, your face delivery is going to be more consistent more often.
Yeah,
Even your practice becomes more consistent if you're not fighting the putter all the time.
Yeah, like DJ, we had he was always a Spider Tour guy, right? And he was a blade guy first, and then went to Spider Tour. Completely two different opposites, right? With the CG location. So one over rotates, one it's going to hold off. But what was his miss? His miss was always right under pressure. And so he went this year to a Spider GT, which is that forward location. So it's up.
Allows them to close it faster. Yeah.
It allows it to close. So he was like, wow, where was this then a couple of years ago? Because it allowed him to rotate with the stability, though.
Right.
Yeah. What happens to, I mean, launch condition? Obviously, if you've got those weights way forward versus way back, are you seeing a lot of different launch and roll percentage difference?
Yeah, you can start to see a couple other parameters. You can see launch, you can see shaft angle, you can also see attack angles. About up to let's call it a degree.
Right.
Not as much as you do the rotation around the face, but you will see some of that. It's a fitter's dream. Let me call it that, because
Right.
we had a gentleman, and I use this, a real good player, and he was returning it back in 0.4, but his launch angle was less than a degree, right around a degree, it's called. So he wanted a little more launch, and so we just took it from the 3 position, moved it to a 2.5, and all of a sudden we saw that
So
launch,
that's small movement.
just that little bit of
Yeah.
movement. All of a sudden it went from 1 to 1.8.
That's a lot, actually, just moving a little bit of weight.
Yeah.
I mean, that's almost.
But again, the key there is the amount of weight
It's
that
80
you're moving.
yeah,
grams,
so it's a lot of
Moving
weight.
80 grams.
We got excited about 50 in the fairway wood. This is
exactly.
80.
This is 80.
Yeah, that's
80
great.
in a putter.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's awesome. Oh, that's such a great story. I mean, I'm sure we're going to see that technology evolve, just like the carbon wood technology is going to push forward into different lines of putters, hopefully. I'd like that as a fitter.
It's the start, right? I think it's the start. It was like TaylorMade, the first time they came out with the movable, changeable driver, right? Back in
Right.
2003, 2004. I think Bovee was just a child back then. So we have now this technology that TaylorMade started with that many years ago, first time in drivers. Now every driver has that technology.
Yeah.
So this is the first on a putter.
Yeah, I'm excited to see it come forward. I love hitting putters. It's fun, and if you can make someone hole putts, that changes their score day one. So that's
Exactly. And
exciting.
we're not changing him or her.
Right.
We're letting the putter.
Way easier to match the club to the player than try to change the player. I can
Exactly.
tell you that.
Exactly. That's the key.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, keep an eye out, everyone. I'm not going to tell you what date it is coming out yet. It's a little up in the air, but you'll know when you see this. Thank you so much, Bill. We're going to let you get away and do some real putting with some real
thank you.
people. So
Thank you.
appreciate it.
Thanks.
Thanks, Bill.
Cheers.